Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new ProRevenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Tear Open Our Driveway to Pour Concrete? Fine, you'll probably enjoy having to dig the concrete out of the ground. Twice. Not about me, but about a guy the first used to work with. He was a mountain of a guy, a huge Turk, but the kindest guy the first ever met. He'd do anything for people he liked. Nobody ever saw anybody get on this bad side until that fateful day. As it happens, he was also our delivery driver, and he spent most days on the road in his semi, leaving before dawn and returning quite late, if at all, that day. Our warehouse had a driveway large enough for him to pull the semi into, and load, unload. The supermarket next door decided to do some renovations, and expand. When they started construction, they started tearing out their brick parking lot, and getting close to tearing out our driveway. Boss runs out, tells them where our property line is, and is assured they won't cross onto our property. Everybody goes back inside, nobody worries, until there's suddenly a raging bear Turk standing in the break room, shouting about how the driveway has been torn up and he can't get his lorry in. We go out, and indeed, the driveway is half missing, and there's a concrete building foundation poured in. Construction workers are nowhere in sight. Boss sends the supermarket manager an email message, and everybody goes home. Next day we arrive to the site of very angry construction workers. Apparently, the delivery driver went back in the middle of the night with some bolt cutters, liberated about 30 of their shopping carts, and stuck them into the drying concrete in various comical positions. Overnight, the concrete hardened, and the carts became quite difficult to remove. Construction crew brings in the jackhammers, and 4 days later, most of the concrete is gone, and they start preparing for another pour, this time leaving our driveway intact. Foundation comes out fine, everything is looking good. At that time, my boss shows up with the announcement that he had a survey done, and while they didn't tear open our driveway the second time, they were still closer to our property line than allowed, and he'd already filed a complaint to get the concrete removed. Took them another week of jackhammering to get it out. The next one is titled, Cheat on Me and Keep a Journal About It. You're going down. So late 2016 I discover my now ex-wife was cheating on me. As you can imagine, I was destroyed mentally and I felt like my life was spinning out of control. We had been through a lot together, so this really hurt. After the admission that she had cheated, we both figured seeing a professional would help and maybe we could make it work. Fast forward a month, I find a journal she had been keeping detailing everything. This was a second hard-hitting blow to my mental well-being. After reading some pages I learned she's still cheating. This is my breaking point, I can't even look at her. I've stuck with her through drug addiction, a miscarriage, and a workplace injury that left her unable to hold a job. The injury is what led to a pain pill addiction I thought she had kicked. I was wrong. I was in total shock and revenge mode. I was going to destroy her. Day 1 I go to the county courthouse and retrieve a divorce packet containing what papers and documents one would need to file without a lawyer. I also make an appointment with a high-profile divorce lawyer in my state. The only downside was my soon-to-be lawyer was across the state, roughly 6 hours away, so I had to take some time off work and meet with her ASAP. Day 2 after ex-wife leaves for a bit to go to the store, I locate her journal and proceed to take very good pics of every page. I also decide to go through ex-wife's other things like finding her pill stash and, I kid you not, found a line of crushed pills on one of our glass drink coasters. I was livid at this sight and take pics of it as well. After ex-wife returns home I tell her I'm leaving for the city for the night and I'd be home the next day. At this point, she still believes I know nothing and am still trying to work things out. Day 3 I meet with the mastermind of a lawyer. She was a true shark. I explained everything to her, gave her copies of every photo, the texts of my ex-wife admitting to cheating, any type of dirt I had was laid out on a silver platter for this shark to salivate over. SL asks me if I have any laundry to air. I told her no and told her everything I've been through. I was D*MN near untouchable when it came to my image as a good husband. SL was pleased and said she would happily take my case and jokingly said, this is going to be an easy payday. We settled on a flat fee of $4,000 since she was so sure the case would be a slam dunk, warning me though if my ex-wife was dumb enough to take the divorce to trial my fees may go up, but not to worry about that. We drafted a very one-sided divorce decree, one where my ex-wife would waive all claims to my 401k, over $200,000 at the time. She waived all claims to my truck, currently in both our names, and finally dividing up the debt, leaving me to only pay my personal credit card and utilities that were in my name, and any debt in my ex-wife's name was hers and hers alone. With the documents in hand, I make the long drive back home and begin to set the wheels in motion. My ex-wife is served the following day and she moves out that night, trashing the house at the same time I assume to stay with whatever POS she was sleeping with. 2 months later our divorce is finalized. I then contact every pharmacy, doctor, and physical therapist she used, informing them of her drug abuse along with pictures. I contact her new employer and hint that they may want to have her tested. This was her first job in 5 years since I wasn't there to support her. She's later blacklisted from the doctor, pharmacy, and fired from her job. On top of all that, I start seeing her best friend for casual hooking up. It turns out she loved rubbing it in ex-wife's face that she was having relations with me. To this day my ex has never recovered, holds a minimum wage job at a slum bar, and is still on the pills. I've recently learned her boyfriend is currently cheating on her and I love it. This woman wasted 8 years in total of my life and I've enjoyed watching her suffer. The next one is titled, "Don't Want to Pay Your Bills or Pay Me Back? Let me make a call and get this sorted." 2 months ago I lent some, what I thought were, friends $700. They came to me begging to help them out to catch up on bills, specifically on their car loan. They told me they were 2 months behind on it and didn't want it repossessed. So me being the gullible soft touch I am, I lent them the money. Now they promised to pay me back $233 per month for 3 months until I was fully paid back. Note, I didn't even charge them any interest. Well, it came to the first month and guess what? Yep. No payment to me. They came up with this really half-baked excuse that they were behind on other bills too now. So the next day I take a drive to their apartment to discuss this with them. What do I see when I walk in their living room? A gosh darn brand new 52 inches LED smart TV mounted on the wall. At first, I didn't say anything about the TV. I asked them why they reneged on our agreement to pay me back and I got the same excuse. We are really backed up on our other bills and have been paying those off too. This is when I pointed to the brand new TV and said, well, WTF is that new TV, and last month when I was here, that was not there. The answer I got floored me. They told me it was none of my ducking business what we spend our money on, and they would start paying me back next month. I was fuming so much I just walked out and went home. Well, I thought to myself, I will give them to next month and see if they start paying me. Well, next month came and guess what? Another ducking bullshit *T excuse. This time it was their dog got sick and they had vet bills to pay. Now I was upset and in full revenge mode. I drove over to their place late at night, 3 a.m. in the morning, and wrote down the VIN number to their car and the license plate number. The next day I started calling car repo companies to see if the car was up for repossession. Well, guess what it was? Those lying idiots never made a freaking payment on their car on over 5 months, I found out. The woman I spoke to was nice enough to tell me who the lien holder was. I then told her I knew where the car was and I was willing to let them know for a finder's fee. They agreed to it, $250 finder's fee. I met with the repo agent 3 days later and showed him where the car was and he handed me $250 and then went and hooked their car up to haul it away. Meanwhile, I was sitting in the tow truck the entire time. The next thing I see is those two lying asshole come flying out of their apartment screaming at the tow truck driver that he can't take their car away, that they were all caught up on their payments. That is when I stepped out of the tow truck and they saw me and I said to them, bull ducking crap, you're caught up, I spoke to your lien holder and you're over 5 months behind and this is what you get for lying to me and ripping me off, douchebags. The next one is titled, I made sure he could never work or live in his hometown again after impregnating my friend. During the period of my school years, I went to a Catholic school. I had made very few friends, but we appeared very close. There were 4 of us females and 2 guys. When I was 16, nature finally decided to take its course and I became interested in girls as well, but this was a Catholic school in an extremely small southern town. My affections fell on a senior in our group, who I will call Adam. He seemed interested as well, and we began dating. That summer Adam decided to join the army. Having grown up in an entire family of Army and Navy, I was very proud of him, and I intended to join the military as well once I could. And I did. Hoo-yah Navy. So, when he left for boot camp, one tried to help him as much as I could. But, alas, all puppy loves must come to an end. You see, high school boys are notorious for being dogs, and my little soldier was no different. Adam had married an exotic dancer immediately after AIT or technical training for the non-military. But it doesn't stop there. Oh no, I mean, what good would a revenge story be if it was just an ex who decided to say screw it? No, you see, our group of friends had one particularly saucy lass who I'm going to call Lilith. She also had her eyes on Adam. Now, it wasn't but a few months after Adam came home for a few weeks on leave that I learned about his wife. But this was after I found out that he had knocked up my best friend, Lilith. As you can imagine, 16-year-old hormones plus undiagnosed bipolar plus first love plus first betrayal equates to a whole mess of non-thought-out actions. Now, I need to say, this is not a path I am super proud of. In fact, I cringe every time I think about what happened. For anyone who doesn't know, adultery in the US military is an extreme offense, punishable by all sorts of nasty things, such as restriction, docking of pay, court-martial, dishonorable discharge, or even brig time, although while I've heard it is a possible punishment, I've never seen that one. The very first thing I did was report the adultery and pregnancy to his command, followed by his wife. She deserved to know her less than 1 month-old marriage already had a Jody problem. Long story short, for his part he lost his wife, rank, and was discharged when found to be drinking underage and in uniform, as a result of the divorce. Lilith, on the other hand, met a much nastier fate. See, as I said, this was a very small and predominantly Catholic town. So, her revenge was much meaner. My first stop was to the school's priest. I didn't make it a confession, as my family was not Catholic, we were Pentecostal, so I spoke with him about a crisis of faith, where I basically spilled the beans that 16-year-old Lilith and school volleyball star had gotten pregnant, and, due to my beliefs, I was unsure if I should maintain a relationship with her. Of course, the priest took that to the school board, as a pregnancy was a violation of our purity promises. I know, extremely stupid, but again the Southern dogma at its best. She was kicked from the team pending a pregnancy test. Surprise, it was positive. The next step was to ruin her job. The diner she worked for was basically owned by a couple who believed intercourse was for reproductive purposes only, and taking pleasure from it was a sin. Lilith was fired. As a bonus, her parents discovered she was not only pregnant but had gotten that way with a married man. They lost it, and did not speak to her. I'm not really sure to the extent they maintained their silence, seeing as she was a minor, and she was kicked out on the day of her 18th birthday. I've really lost touch with almost everyone from that time, but from my understanding, Lilith suffered a miscarriage. This is where most of my guilt resides, due to the stress, and has since developed a habit, although I'm not sure of what, and I don't want to assume. Adam's wife did leave him, but not before getting pregnant herself and taking him for everything she could. Due to the dishonorable discharge, he could no longer work in that town and moved somewhere in the Midwest. Maybe I went too far over a high school crush, but, in the end, it was the anger of a teenager scorned. I feel guilty over the miscarriage, yet, knowing that I'm remembered by even a few people as a force to be reckoned with, does bring a smile to my face. The last one is titled, Fire Us or Cut Our Pay? Enjoy a mass walkout. Back in the early 2000s, I worked for a tech company who offered tech support, on-site support and training to organizations who either didn't want specialized IT staff, or could benefit from outsourcing. The company consisted of the 3 directors, a sales department, finance, HR department, and tech department. Tech was further split, with a senior manager, 4 team managers, and each team having 2 section managers. For call center support, where I worked, we had 2 team leaders, 2 senior engineers, 2 normal engineers and 2 juniors. I was a standard engineer, earning $22K for a job that was worth at least $5K more outside of the low-price area we all lived in. 2006, and I'm still stuck in this job, on the same pay. Conditions are worse than before, with no overtime, no flexi-time, no financial compensation for industry qualifications, shortened breaks and no pay rise since I started. To make matters worse, they sold part of the land that the office was on to a developer, and on-site car parking was now for management only. We had to either pay to use the nearby council car park, or risk parking on the street. Morale was low, but despite bad pay it was still good for the area we lived in. One Friday in July, I think it was the 21st, one of the senior engineers finds a document that he shares around the private chat app. It's a restructuring plan that the board voted in last week. Apparently, this had to be made available for the company for 3 months before any changes to terms and conditions could be made, so the board gave it a generic file name and tried to bury it in the large staff shared area of the network. One of the directors was selling his shares and moving on, having been headhunted by a large recruitment firm in a nearby city. The 2 remaining directors had managed to buy most of her shares with a small quantity going outside the company. This was the company response. Most of the document was a typical downsize, restructure package with a twist. A few team mergers, staff reductions and pay cuts spun as if to say that they needed to maximize their profits to put the lost money back into the company. In October, a new contract would be released for all to sign, and was generic. In November, the restructure would be announced, and by January 1st, the new structure would be in place. The directors noted that the new contract needed to exclude clauses for non-competition and for soliciting customers, as these didn't exist except for the sales staff. It also mapped current positions to their new ones, and what the new salary would be. I would be down by £5,000 a year, but the twist was that anyone with the word manager in their title would have their pay increased drastically. The team manager's pay jumped from $52,000 to $65,000, for example. By the end of the day, everyone under the rank of team leader had seen this document and was not happy. Over the weekend, I got a text message from one of the senior engineers inviting me to a barbecue at his house. When I got there, most of the tech staff was there, and during the afternoon we formulated a battle plan. Our revenge. Monday the 24th of July, 8 a.m. 26 people in the tech team arrived for work as normal, each with a letter for the senior manager giving their 1-month notice, and all quoting the clause in their contract that states that members of the technical team with access to confidential company information must be off-site and on gardening leave the same day as they hand in their notice. No exceptions will be given. Gardening leave is a term used to say that we still work for the company, have handed in our notice to quit, but can't remain on site or using company resources, so must wait out the remainder of the notice at home. We can't start a new job within that period. The net effect was that at 9:30 a.m., the director realized that his entire tech staff had quit and marched to the office floor and started harassing one of the seniors. The senior simply stood, took off his ID badge and swipe card, handed it to the director and told him, "I've already quit. This is me now sticking to my contract." On cue, most of the staff followed, with one member staying until lunchtime. From what I've been told, directors, senior managers, anyone they could get hold of were on the phones attempting to fix issues. The unsolved open queue went from around 35 to nearly 100 by lunchtime, and naturally the blame was left firmly at the door of those who quit. We were even bad-mouthed to customers. The day after our notice period expired, the senior engineer welcomed 25 new staff to his new company, and had already taken 10 large contracts from the place we used to work for. We all had better pay, not much, but it was better than losing pay, and much better conditions, with an actual career track rather than the whim of the managers. The old company tried to keep afloat for a year, but were losing money on every contract and couldn't afford to employ skilled or experienced people. They closed down in June of 2007, with the owners having to sell personal assets to pay debts, and the 2 remaining directors declaring personal bankruptcy too. I left the new company in 2010 as the market had changed and more companies were hiring staff than outsourcing, so contracts were harder to find, and I also had some minor medical issues that meant I needed to be near home. New company is still going strong though, having lent more towards web design and development than anything else these days. Thanks for listening.